Welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast, where we talk to C-level leaders from across the payments landscape. We'll be discussing the products and services that impact the payment space today, as well as trends and predictions for the future of payments. We will also hear stories from our guests about their journeys to the top.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast. I'm your host, Greg Myers, and on today's show, we have a very special guest, Alan Kopelman, the CEO of Nationwide Payment Systems. So, Alan, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me on today, Greg.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive in. If you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, maybe where you grew up, where you went to school, where you currently live, a few things like that.
Okay, so I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I grew up in Florida after moving. My parents abducted us from New York in 1968. Lived down here in South Florida most of my life. A little bit of time in Atlanta, Dallas. I used to be a chef, and then crazily got into this payments business in 1998. And in 2001, I launched the company Nationwide Payment Systems.
Okay, great. Well, tell us about Nationwide Payment Systems. What do you do?
Well, we started off basically selling little boxes like everybody else back in the day, with the Trans 330s, Nare 2085, Hypercoms. A lot of people done it. Newer people in the industry never heard of any of that. And we started to get into integrating point of sale systems in restaurants as we got requests for that, because, as you sign up more accounts, you get exposed to more customers and people asking for different things. And over the years, we've, especially the last, I would say 10 years, and then even more the last 5-6 years, become very focused on technology and focusing more on technology and less on, merchant services. Because today I feel that businesses are buying tech first, merchant services second in most cases.
Right. Do you have certain industries or types of merchants that you focus on?
No, I think that, that was one thing that I was really glad about when we went through the pandemic, COVID, is that when I saw a lot of my friends who focused on restaurants, focused on nail salons and businesses like that, and focused solely maybe in the city where they were, the state, that they lost a lot more business than we lost. And because we were focusing in prior to that period on a lot of e-com, we didn't see a huge drop off, which was good. So that was super important. While we did see a significant drop off in residuals, we didn't take as hard a hit as many people took. So I think that when you stick to, one sector, that's really, really difficult. But one of the things that we have done is we kind of take the approach like, okay, you're not necessarily high risk, but a higher risk type of business. We focus in on finding solutions for them, finding software they could use, working with processors that deal with those type of businesses. And those people get called on a lot less. The B2B sector doesn't get called on. I was telling my reps, like, go to the warehouse area. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, everybody's pounding the pavement on the storefronts, right? Mm-hmm. And, these guys that have businesses in warehouses and freestanding buildings, no one ever calls on them. And if you call on them, you're going to find, a hidden gem in there doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So, you have to really, expand your who you're willing to call on to get business.
Okay, so you're kind of talking about sort of go to market. So obviously you have sales reps. Do you have partnerships? How else do you go to market?
So we don't really have a lot of sales reps. Maybe like one or two, just either real sales reps. Everybody else basically is a referral partner. So we deal with a lot of business brokers, consultants for different types of businesses, fractionals. We have a couple of fractional CFOs. So they might be working with a business, and the business, is at a point where, okay, we need a new point of sale system. We have 50,000 items of inventory and, what are we going to use for a point of sale? And they'll come to us and say, oh, can you help us with this problem? Or, we focus more on like those type of opportunities.
Okay.
I got booted off Stripe. What do I do?
Yeah, I'm sure you hear that a lot.
We get some of those calls. Some of them are super difficult to deal with because they build up. It's amazing to me. You'll see a business doing millions of dollars a month, and they built their entire infrastructure on Stripe, and then they can't move.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's super challenging.
Right. And you mentioned POS. Are there certain POS systems that you like to sell more than others, or just pretty much whatever fits the merchant need?
Well, we always want to fit the merchant's need, but what we've done is in the last couple of years, it's kind of learned our lesson when it comes to point of sale. I was in a forum on Facebook the other day, somebody big in the business. I don't know if you know Mike Nardi. He wrote, most people don't understand what you're talking about. You've lost more money in residual than most people have made in their lifetime. And, the trend where all these private equity came in and bought up all these point of sale systems and then swooped in and stole all the credit card processing at the same, basically, either right away or over a short period of time, that's really dug into our pocket. And, after that happened quite a few times, we really worked hard to find companies who own the point of sale system, own the processing relationship, and it's all one company. And that way we know that they're not going to, if they do sell, we're not going to lose our residual. And it's a huge problem in the business. I mean, just in 2024, last year, we probably lost close to 10 grand a month in recurring revenue. From just software company gets sold, boom, here goes one merchant, two merchants, three merchants, gone. So, and that hurts, when you lose that much money in residuals to that problem. And that problem I don't think is ever going to stop right now because I wrote an article about agnostic versus antagonistic. And I wrote another follow-up article called Is Software the New ISO? And software is the new ISO. And, that's where the business is going right now. Every company out there is focused on partnering with ISVs.
Yeah, definitely has been a trend for quite some time. I think it's, I don't know, I've read stats where up to 60% of small businesses are running payments through software companies. Oh,
definitely. I would say that software is going to start probably in the next 2 years, going to really outpace, and especially as business owners get younger, we're going to see more software, less terminals.
Yep. Totally agree. So are you guys just kind of based in the U.S. or do you do anything outside the U.S.?
We could do a little bit outside the U.S. because we have referral relationships with companies. When somebody comes to us, if they're doing international transactions, I always laugh. Visa has commercials. Oh, it's a worldwide economy, but that's not really. That's far from the case. I think that from an ISO perspective, when I look at some of these big ISOs, I think some of them need to really take a look at Stripe. They probably used to laugh and go, Stripe, what are they going to do? But I think they really need to take a look at, how they're capturing a lot of these e-commerce companies, especially the SaaS companies who are doing business all over the world. And, we'll get some of those businesses come to us. And then if they have a large amount of international transactions, it's really hard to service that kind of business.
Right.
And there's only, few people in that game of international processing.
Right. Well, what would you say differentiates your business from your competitors out there?
Well, one, we do a very good homework with our merchants. We try to understand, I ask them all the time, like, okay, tell me about your business. How do you accept payments? You can't show me two plumbers that are going to do business the exact same way. One guy's going to want to have a card present. One guy's going to want to key in everything. The third guy's going to want to send a payment link out. It's just you just have to figure out and then try to explain to them the risks that a company what they're doing. And sometimes it just depends. Like like we have a huge plumbing company. It's B2B. They only deal with the businesses. They have very little residential. So for residential, we gave them little swipe simples for their 5 guys that do residential. Everybody else, they just send them a link and they pay their bill. So, you have to really do your homework and not try to stick a square peg in a round hole, and, figure out what they're doing, how they're doing it, and take advantage of things like when somebody comes to you and they're in a particular business that might get breaks on interchange because of their SIC code, and make sure that you board them correctly so that they're getting the correct SIC codes and hitting the right interchange levels, so that you can save them a lot of money, like education, utilities, insurance is a big one. We've found many insurance companies being charged retail interchange, nonprofits on retail interchange, and they're not they're on cost plus, but they're not getting the break that they need.
Right.
So
right.
Super important to take advantage of that.
Okay. So you talked about software being the future. What are some other trends that you see over the next, say, 3 to 5 years in payments?
Well, that's definitely number one. I see number two, I see a lot of sales going to back to the ISOs where they're pressing to do more inside sales. I see that. The third thing I see is, the FTC just came out with this really strict click to cancel rule. And I think that that's going to create a lot of havoc out there for companies who are doing recurring transactions. And because the fine is $55,000 per incident. And I think that could be that could cause some major problems this year once that goes into effect in April or May. And the other thing I've been reading about, although the article that I read, 2 of them were pulled from the internet. I guess it's a rumor that Visa and MasterCard are upset about all these companies who are propagating level 2 and level 3 data into the transactions. It's kind of like, I guess, preset data to get lower interchange fees. And I guess they're trying to take action to stop that, or at least not accept that data. So, but, they give everybody enough notice. The payment companies will figure out some sort of AI to go in there so they're not sending the same data each and every time to the card processor. So that's all, that's another, that could cause another headache this year. And let's hope that Dick Durbin doesn't get to promote the CCCA and try to even get that passed, because I think that will create, forget the havoc it would cause on our business. I think it would cause businesses to have a really hard time, and I think it would really cost consumers more money. It's not going to help consumers, because it's just going to drive people to buy now, pay later, and buy now, pay later costs businesses more money and costs consumers more money.
Right. Well, they're not educated enough to really, I think, understand the real implications in the real world, and that's always been a challenge, right? The Visas and MasterCards aren't going to give up their revenue, nor are the banks or acquirers or anyone else, right? They're going to find it another way.
No, it was interesting to see the Congress when they had that hearing, and they're questioning the people from Visa. Well, what are you going to do about the $1 trillion deficit on credit cards? They said, we're not in charge.
Right.
Talk to the banks,
Yeah.
So it just shows you that they're uneducated on how the payments business works.
Right.
And they're not interested. It's more like, hey, let's showboat. Let's bring in Visa and MasterCard and let's slap them around. The public will say, yeah, Congress slapped around Visa and MasterCard.
Right. Well, you mentioned AI a minute ago. Are you hearing much about that from your merchants? Is it affecting your business at all?
I think, well, one thing, AI is definitely out there. Like if you're not experimenting with AI, I suggest you go to OpenAI or whichever, Gemini or Copilot, whatever you want to use, have a registered account, get a paid account, at least with one of those. Because when you're using a paid account and you're typing and doing things and asking it to write letters or help you with blog posts or a document or marketing material or social media posts. It starts to learn about your website and what you're doing. And, so AI, everybody needs to get on the AI train and start learning AI, because AI is not going to replace people in all cases. It might reduce workforce somewhat because, if you're using AI to do underwriting, now you don't need somebody sitting there typing in websites and looking up people's credit report. You can program an AI to go in and do all that and hand the underwriter, okay, here's the report on this guy, boom. And it's sitting in front of them in 5 minutes instead of 20 or 30 minutes or an hour. So, definitely, I think a lot of processors are using AI. They're going to figure out how to use AI. Businesses are going to figure out how to use it. We started using AI on our SEO. We took our SEO from a single digit 8 to like 98 score on SEO. So obviously it works. It tells you everything. Goes in, analyzes your entire site, and then gives you a list like, okay, go here, fix this, fix that. Tells you things you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. So AI is here to stay. I mean, definitely you see tons of investment into AI. So who knows where it's going to take us in the future, but I think businesses are going to put it to use, and people need to put it to use, because people who know how to use AI will replace people who don't use AI.
Yeah, I think that's a fact. There's no doubt that that's coming. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you. Maybe walk us through your professional journey, what you were doing before. You mentioned being a chef, but maybe talk about what your professional journey, what got you into payments, how you started the company, a few things like that.
Yeah, so payments, that just that was just an accident. I had a restaurant and I was planning to expand, and then that didn't work out. I was doing some catering, and then one of my friends said, hey, you should get into the payments game. You make all this money, sign people with leases and this and that, and make residual. So I started working for somebody, and I really enjoyed the business. It was a lot less work than working in a restaurant. I mean, I worked in hotels, country clubs, restaurant. So the hours are better. I would definitely say that in the payments business. And then, you start to figure out hey, what am I going to do with this? I started my own company. I credited Riyadh from JR's POS Depot. He doesn't own it anymore, but he gave me my first 2 copies of the green sheet, and I read the green sheet, and then I was like, wow, I guess I could start one of these companies. So that's what I ended up doing with my business partner, David. And, we launched our company in 2001, and we really just looked at things and said, we need to do things that the way we would want to be treated, the way I would want to be treated as a business owner, and just treat people the way we want to be treated. Be available. I always tell sales reps the one thing, and I told this to merchants too, anybody who has a business, if you answer your phone, you're doing 10 times better than everybody that's not answering their phone. So you have to answer your phone. That's a key thing in business. Return emails. And today, you need to have a good digital presence. You have to figure out, have a LinkedIn profile, I started my podcast almost 3 years ago, and hardly anybody was podcasting in payments. Now there's probably a dozen or more payments podcasts, and from all different types of companies and people and all that. So, and everything's focused everybody's focused on a different topic area. So, we just, and leasing, that's another big headache. So we decided we're just going to do this 12-month lease. And when we would go into businesses in our early days, we'd say, oh, the lease is only 12 months. You make 13 payments and you're done. So you don't have to deal with the year-end tax bill that you would get and all this other, excise taxes on leases. It was really crazy. And, when you get yelled at a few times, you go, hey, well, how can I fix this? And, I was lucky that the people that I worked for at the time, Imperial Bank of California, they hooked us up with a good leasing company. And what's funny is a lot of relationships I have in the business today, long-term relationships, all came from that relationship that I started with. So
it's funny.
The people that worked at that bank, tons of them, Joe, Gretchen, Kevin, there was a guy, Steve, we write business for his group now for years. Tons of people that I met, Rosie, tons of people that I met through that one relationship are still around today. So relationships are super important in this business.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
Somebody will come to me and they'll go, well, can you get this merchant approved? Yeah. Where are you going to send it? Then I'll tell them, oh, this place. Well, how I sent it there was declined. Well, you're you and I'm me, and you're not, people don't understand. Like they call everything like, oh, there's a super ISO and then there's whatever wholesale ISOs and all these names, right? And basically I tell people, I go, you guys just don't understand the business. Like if somebody has an ISO and they're a full service ISO where they're taking liability, at least most of the liability or all the liability, they're going to be able to get more things approved at the bank than somebody who's an ISO but has zero liability. And that's what people don't tend to understand, like what the real structure of the business is. And then, obviously everybody's got a risk matrix or something that they're running in the back, that they're running at their place. And, obviously if a new sales rep comes in and brings in a high risk deal, might not be apt to board that versus somebody who's got 5-10 years experience in the business brings the same deal in with more information and a full package. There's ways to get things approved.
Right. Well, what are some things you're passionate about? Maybe one work-related passion and one personal passion.
Work-related passion is, I like giving back to the community of the payments, coming on podcasts, talking about the payments industry. I always attend the SCAA. I went to the very first one. I'm going there this year. I'm going to be doing a panel talking about software is coming for us. And, it's, I really enjoy doing that. I write a column in the Green Sheet, the Street Smarts column. They just announced that I'm invited back for my second year. So I really enjoy doing that and getting a lot of good feedback from reps that they discover one article, then they start reading more articles. And, it's nice to get that feedback from people that wow, this is really, really appreciate you sharing the content. So that's like really important. And the podcast is also, we're talking to business people and, giving small to medium-sized business owners tips on all sorts of things, sales, marketing, not just about payments. It's about more than that, talking to different business leaders about their startup company and how did they start it up, and maybe we help them along the way, or they tell us about their project that they're doing and things like that. So I'm really passionate about doing that and helping people. It's super important. Like, that's one of the things I like about this business. Like being a chef, you cook food, and then you see smiling faces. Everybody's enjoying your food. And that's really cool. And with this business, we're helping business owners achieve what they want in their business. Technology helps businesses save time and money. So it's super important. You help people save time, save money, give them good information. Sometimes they don't sometimes you're the bearer of like, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that, or you need to change this to protect yourself more and things like that. Like nobody likes to discuss chargebacks, In my personal life, and even that goes into business a little bit, is, giving back to the community, and it's important to give back to your community. And we're involved with a lot of local charities here in South Florida. A lot of them are related to children that need clothing, children that need scholarships to pay for sports. scholarships so children can be in a preschool and different things like that, and dog charities and and we have food banks and all different sorts of charities, and we give money throughout the year, and we volunteer at some of those charities, and so it's important to give back. I also tell reps, it's super important, be involved in your community, give back to your community, show people that you're a business leader. And the other thing I always tell reps, they don't listen to this one, is you're a sales rep, okay? Okay, and you're selling bank card. You need to invest in your business. Invest in your business means put up a one-page website. Promote yourself. I have a website, AlanKopelman.com. I mean, it's not super important for me because I own a company, but if you have a company name, make a one-page website with information about your company, stick your picture on there, put your LinkedIn on there, and make yourself look good, and don't have a Gmail or a Yahoo or a Hotmail. You got to look professional. You got to look the part, right?
Right.
So when you look the part and you act the part, people don't know how big or how small your company is. They don't know. So, but if you don't present yourself where you have a real business, that's kind of hard to, to deal with. And I tell them, form a corporation. You're going to, the money it costs you to form your corporation. I tell this even to small business owners, form a corporation. If you don't have money for that, start out at least with a fictitious name, separate your money from your business and your personal. Do not commingle those funds, because later when you go to incorporate, you already have like the start of a business. So it's super important to invest in your business, whether you're a sales rep or you're the ISO, whatever your role is in your business, is to do it the right way and make an investment. Invest in your business and invest in your community. Super important.
Very, very important. So one final question, and you've kind of answered this from advice perspective to sales reps, but if someone just came to you and said, hey, maybe they're right out of college, they're looking for a career, they want to build a career in payments, they know you have a lot of knowledge, what would you tell them to do to be successful in payments as a career?
To be successful in payment today, go invent some software. It's crazy, but I tell this story all the time. Like in 2001, when I started, people built software to sell hardware and to sell service contracts, and they sell their software, right? So that's what they sold. Today, somebody builds software. They don't care about hardware. They're using iPads or Android tablets or just whatever, any kind of computer the merchant has, and they're selling SaaS revenue, and they want payments. That's that's what we're all about now. We're trying to recruit as many independent software vendors as possible. And if you want to get started in payments, you got to get out there, get your nose bloody. You got to have to do what everybody else did to learn this business. I can't download, everything 25 years into somebody's brain. You got to get out there, pound some pavement, get beat up. It's just much harder today because somebody's got a POS sitting on their counter. Unless that thing's broken, it's a lot harder to rip out of there than somebody's just got a Trans 330 or a Hypercom. Back in the old days, you just walked up, batched it out, hit a few buttons after you got them approved, and boom, you have a merchant account. It's just a lot harder today. But, listen, you can get out there, and also with cash discount, dual pricing, 0% programs, surcharging, that's a whole nother subject matter. But, that just gives reps a bigger leg up on when we started in the business, because they can make hundreds or thousands of dollars a month from one merchant account. So it's a lot easier to make money that way. That's another subject. Like, I think Visa should just make a decision on 0% programs and just bite the bullet and stop fighting with the merchants and sending out letters and secret shoppers, and stop with the games with the surcharging. And I think they should just, I read an article where it said more than 33% of retail merchants are passing a fee to their customers. So that means 1 out of 3. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of businesses passing the fee. I mean, will Visa change course? I don't know. No one tells Visa what to do. They make their own rules. They're so big. The only company or person that has more money than Visa is Elon Musk. So.
Right. Great. Well, Alan, we've had a great discussion about you and the company and the industry as a whole. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Well, if you want to connect with me, you can reach me on LinkedIn, Alan Kopelman. You can check out the podcast, B2B Vault, listen to Greg's podcast, and hope everybody enjoyed what we talked about today. And thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, Alan, thank you. And I know your time is very valuable, so I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you.
And to all you listeners out there, I thank you for your time as well. Until the next story.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Leaders in Payments podcast. Make sure you visit our website at leadersinpayments.com, where you can subscribe to the show and where you'll find our show notes. If you enjoyed listening, please share on your social channels as well.